good evening, Source Nation. Welcome to Family Mix Mondays, where we are a show where we discuss a lot of generational cycles that need to be broken, a lot of barriers that are within our family line. And so tonight is just going to keep that part going. And so this month, I'll be kicking off a brand new series about helping your students or your children transition. And so I want to really help a lot of our parents when it comes to the knowledge of life skills, and that we have a lot of focus on certain areas. I really want to talk about those underlying things that I see later affect people when they have to make real big decisions in life. And so we have George Stewart, who's going to join me this evening. And so George Stewart II is an educator, author, mentor, ordained minister, and youth family advocate. And he is quickly becoming a go-to person and trusted voice on issues such as youth development, education, spirituality, and fatherhood. George has experienced great successes as a classroom teacher, but his work does not end when the bell rings. Besides partnering with the Call Me Minister program to serve as a mentor to future young Black male educators, he has developed a school board-approved after-school program for at-risk boys, develops and facilitates male empowerment and fatherhood curriculums, and speaks at community events and conferences. And so finally, George is a member of the board of directors of state organization, Mississippi Families of Allies, as Allies. It is the only family-run statewide organization for parents and caregivers of children with mental health and behavior challenges. And George's motto is doing it with the next generation in mind. And so George and I are gonna really kick off this discussion. And so George, hello, and thank you so much just for being a part of this series.
Great. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So I know I read a lot about you, but telling people about you does no justice. So what else has been going on since we last did an interview last year, and just how are things? What's an update?
Things are great. Thank you. I think the last time we spoke, I was teaching in a different capacity, but now I've moved over to what's called an independent study skills teacher. And basically what that is I provide interventions for kids who scored in the bottom 25% on the state exam. So I work with those individuals who need a little bit extra help in math and language arts, and I provide interventions. And sometimes I do a little bit of mentoring here and there as well, some type of guiding in that aspect as well. And also since then, I've also been accepted in a program called the Mississippi Black Leadership Institute that focuses on individuals, professionals in the state who wants to become advocates and just kind of be change agents in the state. And so the things that are covered are political, helping you run and develop political campaigns, how to advocate for different things for people in marginalized environments. And so I'm excited about that opportunity as well. I just got accepted in the program. It's a 9-month program. And I'm looking forward to actually getting the training that's needed to actually help me in my advocacy with children as well as families. So I'm excited about that. And like I said, I'm just providing interventions for kids now, and it's more so out of a classroom environment, more so into more of a small group, one-on-one situation with kids where I'm helping those kids improve their test scores for the upcoming state exam this year.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a big accomplishment. You're right. It's something when we find out that, man, we need more training just to go in deeper to the issues. But I think that's part of the sacrifice, especially as being a servant of God, is where he's like, okay, I need you to go over here because I need you to see some else. But I'm preparing you. So I'm a strong believer in that.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so thank you again for being a part of the series. So let's jump right in. What are some of the issues that you see when it comes to the beginning of the school year, when it comes to kids just kind of coming off of the summer and just falling back in a routine? What are some common issues you've seen?
Some of the common issues that I see are, as you said, a lot of the kids are coming back off of the summer. They have to get some of that rust off of not being in the classroom environment. So they're coming back and trying to get them back acclimated into a routine. So they're kind of I don't want to say all over the place, but they definitely need that retraining and that retooling as far as getting them back acclimated in a routine. And a lot of the time, the kids that I serve are actually very, very excited to be back in school. So they're a little bit antsy and things like that, which is great because a lot of those kids see the school as an actual safe haven. Because a lot of the kids that I've served, they come from poor environments. They witness violence and things like that. So a lot of them are actually pretty excited to get back into the school because a lot of those kids in school is a safe haven. So they're excited, and like I said, trying to get them back acclimated and just trying to get them to settle down and get them in a routine. So that's typically what I see at the very beginning of the year, just trying to get them to settle down and calm down and get them back into the business of learning. Because face it, because really, to be honest, a lot of those kids are not in an environment where they're learning over the summer. So trying to get them back in the mind frame of actually being in the classroom environment and learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think of, when you say that, I think of like my son's summer. And I usually typically put my son in a camp, but when I'm looking for a certain camp, I'm looking for one that's gonna like imitate what school would be like. And I remember one year, which was last summer, I put him in a camp that had no academics. And like, that was a really big mistake because when the teacher got him back, he was like he didn't make any new academic changes. And so this year I was like, okay, we need to go back to the half and half. And so I think that raises a point of how like there's a lot of arguments to should schools be year round because of people feeling like kids kind of lose the information and they can't get themselves back in this routine of it. And so as an educator, at one point I want to kind of look at when it comes to transitioning our kids in, do you think like what type of summer type of structure is good for helping when it's time to transition when it comes to the educational part?
Well, it's like you said, I think a program that mirrors, for the most part, what school looks like, what the school environment looks like. But I also think there should be some balance. There should be you have the academic piece. I think there should be like the character development piece as well. And also the physical health and wellness piece. I'm real big on working on the child holistically, mentally, spiritually, academically. So when I think about a summer program, I'm looking for all those different factors that kind of couples all those things together that not only touches the academics, but also the social and emotional aspect. It also touches on the character development, leadership development, physical and health and wellness development as well. So those are the kind of programs that I like to see over the summer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So that raises a good point. And then so you talked about that you're helping the kids that scored certain things on their testing. That's the area that you're working in now?
Correct. The kids that scored in the bottom 25% on their state test.
Okay, so like let's look at that when it comes to maybe parents, like with that, and then you work with a predominantly Black environment, correct? Like the
That's
Black
correct.
community. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So maybe let's speak to like some of our Black parents when it comes to how can we help with stuff like that? Because we know you're the intervention. So where can we help with prevention? So since you see that environment, what can parents do for helping with that part when it comes to school and making sure the kids are academically ready?
Absolutely. And let me say this, if I may, before I get started. There's a misconception that kids and families that live in a low-income environment, there's a misconception that those parents just send those kids to school and they care nothing about their education, but just send them to school. And I'll say, in my experience, that's absolutely not the case. A lot of times, it's because a parent can't make a PTA conference or can't always make teacher-parent conferences. That doesn't mean that they don't care. They just have some other situations going on. So I like to always start off by saying that kids and the parents in those environments, regardless of what people say, they do care about their child's education. And so adding to that, I would say the number one thing is developing a partnership with the school. A lot of times you can, based off of what the child learned last year, even with that, just kind of going off of practicing that information that what they went over last year, as far as the information they received, as far as what they learned. Also, one of the things I could say is that education, a lot of it is done on computer. And so some of the programs we use from an intervention standpoint, we use a lot of the computer programs. And so what we tend to do is reach out to parents and let them know what programs we're using, and also let them know that those computer programs can also be utilized at home. And so helping the child over the summer utilize those different programs that we use as a form of intervention in the school. Like, for example, like this year, the bottom 25% of the kids that we're working with, there's a computer program that we're working with. And we reach out to parents and let them know what program that is and how they can also help with their child at home using that same exact program that we use in the school. So just helping them at home utilize that program that we're using and developing that partnership, it could be keeping that line of communication open, will be very, very helpful in their academics. But just keeping that communication open and definitely utilizing the resources that we provide the kids.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Because like, I think toward the end of the year, the kids and the parent is ready for school to end. And so I think like that's really good advice, is to realize that it's just that portion of their life or their grade level that's ending, but there's a continuum, and having that open line of communication would be beneficial to the kid. I know some schools will send home like reading lists. And I think that's something that's really good that maybe a lot of more people should pick up on, is computer programs that you're saying, and different reading lists.
Absolutely.
For my son this summer, because he's been like, his reading level has been something I've been really working with a lot. So this summer I decided that I wasn't going to go for a tutor, but what I was going to do is each week make him check out 3 books. And we found out that the library actually had a reading system where they were giving awards, and they would just encourage you to keep reading. I signed him up for it and just everything. And I noticed that this summer he was able to read like 10 books, and he didn't get to more of a number that I wanted him to get to, because I offered him like $20 for 20 books, but he got to 10, which was a big improvement for him. And so, and they gave like a certificate. He got something out of the prize box. He got a free kids meal somewhere, and we kept it going. So even though school has started, we're still checking out books. And he found out that he actually really likes reading a certain comic, and which was like a certain type of, like, it was like a certain type of comic kid book. And he actually wants to go. And he's like, Mom, are you going to the library this weekend? And he was like, can I get a book? And it was something that really, really helped.
Awesome. And that's great, because a lot of times what I notice, we have more of a difficult time, and that's great that you're doing that, because we do have a more difficult time getting our boys to read more than the girls. So that's very great that you're doing that, because that is something that I've noticed. But like you said, with your son finding the books that he loves, I think we have to really, really focus on really understanding what boys like and what boys like to do, and really getting books that really, really cater to what boys are interested in. I think a lot of times the schools and different programs don't really have a lot of books that are boys centered. And so once you tap into what they like and what they're interested in, they will definitely read it. In my experience, I've seen that you can put just about any kind of book in front of a girl, and she's going to read it. But boys, it's a little bit more specific in what they like to read, and if they will engage in actually reading it. And so that's great that you're able to do that, because we do sometimes have a harder time getting our boys to actually read.
But it took me a minute to actually do it. Like, I fought with several tutors. I paid for aftercare, so I just paid for so much, and I was just like, man, he's moving up a level, but he's still staying behind the level of the grade he's in reading wise. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to try something. And then that just kind of hit me to try. But then again, it was something over the summer. And I decided that next summer I was going to, as he moves, because he went to the 5th grade, next summer my goal was to be like, okay, I'm going to teach him definitions. As he reads new books, I'm going to introduce definitions and terms. And so like every summer there'll be some type of skill or something that I'm going to build upon as I help him transition into the next grade level. And so that was something I just came up with that I thought was helpful. But he was just like a lot of other boys. Definitely did not want to read. Definitely was not interested at all.
And you mentioned something also, and it's something that we also utilize in our intervention program as well. And you mentioned incentives. That is a great idea that for parents to utilize as far as getting their child to read, or whatever academic discipline they're working on. Definitely provide those incentives for their kids is a very, very good idea.
Mm-hmm. So let's shift a little bit. So we know letting them get into some type of computer program that they can do. And later, before we end, maybe there's one that is open to several people in education that is not restricted to your school. Maybe that's something you can offer and let them know a website. But like, let's talk about like shifting them to be prepared for like the mental stamina. You know, like you're moving from being free playing around to now you gotta sit down in the classroom.
Right.
What do you think helps with building that mental stamina for getting back into this 8-hour day?
I think with that is it takes practice. It's more of a practice and a trial and error type of thing. And that's why we typically spend about the first 2 to 3 days actually, going over routines and things like that. So it definitely takes some practice. And then believe it or not, we have to do this with middle school kids as well. How to sit down, how to go to the restroom properly, how to transition throughout the classroom. And that's something that definitely takes practice. It's like a basketball player trying to improve his free throw percentage. He has to go out there and shoot X amount of shots in order to improve his percentage. And the same thing goes with transitioning back into the classroom. It takes practice and just kind of going over that routine over and over again. And also setting expectations is number one as well. Letting them know that we're back in a school environment, we're in the business of learning, and it's really setting those expectations and also modeling. That's really big. Model the behavior that we want to see is also very big.
So George, as a teacher and as a person who also mentors, what would help you as the teacher that parents can do to help begin that process of like helping them with building that mental stamina? Like what do you want the parents to do?
As far as the parents, really having that conversation with their child, as well as far as getting them back acclimated into the classroom. I'm very big on communication and also communicating with the teacher. I like to get some information on the child when starting out, because believe it or not, whatever the case may be, some of them have a harder time of sitting in a classroom environment or sitting in a seat and things like that. They have a harder time than others. And there could be something that's going on that makes that a little bit more difficult than other children. So I like to get some information on the child. So definitely as a parent, sharing certain information and kind of letting the teacher get a feel for what the child has going on, what they're going through, things like that. But as far as like at home, really having that conversation with them and letting them know what's about to take place. You're about to be back in the classroom environment, and really just having that conversation with them. One of the things that I've realized that builds mental stamina, and I tried this when I at a school a few years ago in Texas. One of the things that I felt builds mental stamina more than a lot of things is teaching a child how to play chess.
Yeah.
Chess is a game that really builds stamina. Like I actually used chess a few years ago in order to build mental stamina, because when they take state tests, a lot of those kids have to sit there for a long amount of time and stay focused on what they're doing. And so a few years ago, although I was an okay player, I wasn't the best, I learned just to kind of teach the kids the basics, because I learned that chess does help build mental stamina. And I did it back a few years ago to help build mental stamina for the kids to have that mental stamina in order to endure state testing. So learning how to play chess and teaching the child to play chess, that definitely is really big in building mental stamina.
Yeah, I agree. My son actually plays because that was something that we needed. A lot of people kept slinging around the term of like, he needs to get tested, like all this and that. And, I'm a mental health professional. So like, I don't really care about like a lot of that stuff. And so
Right.
I think this is year 2.5 that he's been in chess. And I have actually seen a drastic change in his chess moved from 2 hours a week to 3 hours. So he now goes for 3 straight hours with them constant playing. But even the chess teacher has picked up on incentives. Because now and then, like over the summer, he was like, hey, bring changing clothes. We got war to gun fight. And so like he actually has an incentive for sitting down there staying focused for those amount of hours. So it's kind of back to the incentive you mentioned.
Awesome.
I wonder if you mentioned about like taking like these 2 weeks or taking that time to really just getting back in its routine. We know that like keeping the line of communication. I am pro communication, definitely pro communication. So I wonder if that is something, if the parents actually start at a certain time in the summer, if that would actually reduce the amount of time teachers have to focus on getting the kid back acclimated and begin actually assessing. Because we know at the beginning of the year, we all got to assess where the children are so you can start the school year. But I think some of the stuff is you can like reduce the amount of time you spend with it if parents or guardians can actually begin a certain process earlier. So do you think like if that's something that would be helpful?
That definitely would be something that's helpful as far as cutting down the process that we have to use as far as getting the kids back acclimated. And I think, again, that goes back to practicing. And definitely, I think as teachers, we should definitely, whenever we send out information as far as like supplies and things like that, I think there should be like some type of toolkit that is provided. It lets parents know exactly what is actually expected also outside of just the academic piece, if you will, like the things that we look for as far as like how we transition and things like that. So I think a lot of that may probably rest more so on the school side as far as providing that information to them as far as what our procedures look like at the very beginning, and they can work with that child at home. I mean, I think a lot of it just really, again, I think it starts with the conversation. I think it starts with the building of the making sure that the trust is there and making sure the respect is there. And with that being there, the kid can take heed to what the parent is trying to get across to them.
I think that raises a good point. I think it's a dual responsibility. And I think
Absolutely.
that is something that we got to like, just as parents do better on, whether parent or guardian. And we know there's a lot of pressure, especially I'm a single parent. So there's just a lot of pressure. And there's a lot of sacrifices that come in with it.
Even with that, I think there also has to be a bigger push for community outreach from the school as well. A lot of times we do put a lot on the parents, and rightfully so, but also I think a lot of times we as a whole need to also improve on the outreach piece of it, because a lot of the parents aren't really educated, especially in the system that I work in. They're not really as educated on how the system works. And so we do have to improve as a whole on our outreach efforts as well. And I think our district is doing a pretty good job of that. Our school is doing a pretty good job of that. But I think as a whole, we definitely need to improve on the outreach efforts as well.
Yeah, I'm with you as a whole. I'm in Georgia, so I see the same things. I'm in higher ed, so I see a lot of the impact of from elementary, middle school years, high school years, when the person gets to me. And so mental health wise. And so, but I do think like if more people are hands-on and we are reaching more out into the community for things, then you would see faster change. You would see those areas that like you're about to go in and address with the new program that you're going into. We would see a lot more success in those parts if more outreach was done. I agree.
Right. Absolutely.
So last thing I want to like discuss is I want to talk about like the transition that parents transition when it comes to different friendships. So you're in middle school, right? And so we know that's a time. That's a time. That's a time. And so like, how can parents help when it comes to the relational side of things with helping their kid? Like we're talking about puberty. We're talking about like people being interested in like each other, same sex and heterosexual relationships. We're talking about a whole lot happening during this time. Different people come in different shades and different bodies. So like, how can we help our parents prepare their children relational for the things that you kind of see when during this time of the year with the age range that you're with?
Yeah, I think as far as getting them prepared for the relational aspect of it, again, that is definitely a communication piece. Definitely letting them know, because really getting across to them that definitely being vigilant on knowing who their child is hanging around. That's very important. And one of the things that we do as teachers is we sometimes bring that into question, especially when behavior issues come up. We let the parent know that maybe who this child is hanging around does not have their best interest at heart. So I'll say for me personally, I do communicate that over to parents. Of course, not naming names, anything like that, who the child is with, but letting that parent know that if that child is a behavior issue, it could possibly be a lot of times who that child is hanging with and who that child is being influenced by. And really taking that information and using that information to have another conversation with their child. And just really on the parents' end as well, being vigilant. And like you said, I mean, middle school, it's a lot going on with that particular population. It is. And so just really being vigilant and knowing who the child is hanging around with. And as teachers, as I said, we communicate that information back to the parent and using that information to further have a discussion with the child. But definitely letting that child know or really bringing across to them, what does a friend mean? And a lot of times these kids, they're quick to call somebody a friend, and I tell them all the time that don't use that word so loosely. You know, just because you all hang out together, just because you all are, you know, in the same space and y'all like the same things. A lot of times, you know, a friend, it goes deeper than just somebody that you're just hanging around. You know, a friend is somebody that has your best interests at heart. You know, somebody that wants to see you do well, you know, and really communicating that information over to them. You know, a friend is not somebody that wants to see you go in a negative direction. And so a lot of times I definitely communicate that information, you know, to the kids, you know, and just letting them see, you know, what positive friendships look like and what positive friendships can do for you. I share my own personal story a lot of times that I was an okay student. I did okay, but a lot of times I give credit to my friends for me going to college, because there was a time where I wasn't really thinking about going to college, but because I had some good friends who were going off to college and they was talking about doing well, I said, you know what, since they're going, I just followed them on to college as well, you know, and so I actually followed those guys, you know, not really knowing if I was going to do well or what I was going to. I had no clue, but I had friends that had a clue what they were going to do, and they were moving in that direction. And because we were good friends, you know, they influenced me to go on, and I think it worked out pretty well for me. And so I sometimes share that story with kids as well. But on the parent side, is really letting them know what positive friendships look like. Letting them know that, you know, a friend it's not a term that you want to use loosely. And even in relationships, you know, with the opposite sex, you know, they're at the age where they have the boyfriends and girlfriends and things like that. And the same thing applies, you know, is that person somebody that has your best interest at heart, you know, and really having that conversation with them. And I find myself having that conversation as well. It's a conversation that I have to have more than one time, but as I said, we have to be vigilant and at the same time model the behavior we want to see. If we want our children to have, you know, good friendships, if we want our child to hang around people that are some substance, then we have to do the same thing as well.
No, I agree. I really agree. And I think this is a good place to start it, like in the middle school years, that where you are and with that age group of puberty and things like that. Because I'm telling you, George, I'm over here in the college years, and I do relationship one-on-one all the time. I do friendship one-on-one all the time. I have to do like life skill one-on-one. I have to do so much by the time I get to the college level, because those kids are like, I don't know, no one's ever talked to me about relationships. No one's ever talked to me. This person's been my friend since kindergarten because they were my neighbor. And so there is no communication. It's just not happening.
That's right. And I think, of course, that needs to happen on the parent side, of course, but I also advocate for what you're doing at the higher education level. I advocate for those things to take place also on the middle school and the high school level as well, because those conversations so the relationship one-on-one, the friendship one-on-one, I think those things need to be happening. Of course, like I said, on the parent side, but I think those things also need to take place in the middle school and the high school level as well. I think a lot of times we get so focused on state testing that we don't even focus a lot on that aspect. And that's why I think, we need to focus a lot more holistically on the child and not just prepare the child from the moment they get into the school, preparing them to pass the state test. There has to be more.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I believe that that's a lot of the things that we have. And we may have more people who are doing things like you or more outreach. And I personally believe that there's a full connection to everything. And I believe if we start on that other level, like you said, and we discuss relationship wise, we discuss friendships, we have those people who are modeling certain things, pulling us, then I believe like we then will have like a whole lot better things happening than we have kind of today when it comes to marriages, when it comes to like communities, when it comes to organizations, when it comes to like what happens in churches, everything. I believe it's all rooted back to like these necessary conversations and this community involvement.
Absolutely.
And so any last minute things that you want to say, George, when it comes to like what may help some parents who have middle schoolers or people coming from elementary to middle school with helping them transition, or what would help the teacher with them transitioning in?
Absolutely. I would just say that definitely as we move from summer to the beginning of the school year, definitely parents having that conversation with their child. As I said, and as you said as well, communication is very, very key. Definitely letting them know that they're getting back into the school environment, and definitely setting the tone. Because we always say it starts at home, but so parents definitely need to set the tone at home as far as getting them acclimated back into the school. There has to be some type of conversation needs to have, some communication needs to take place. Also, as we talked earlier, there are some different little computer programs out there that parents can utilize at home that can help them over the summertime, help them with the academic piece with the child. There are websites like www.brainpop.com. That's BRAINPOP.com. BrainPop is a really, really good website to use. Also, there's a website that I use with my daughter over the summer. It's called Starfall. It's www.starfall.com, Starfall. There's another website that utilizes hip hop songs to help teach different things called Flocabulary. I think it's Flocabulary, but it's called Flocabulary, and it utilizes hip hop to help teach different things. And so that's great. And so we live in an age where these kids are on computers and cell phones and things like that. And so we definitely want to help them utilize those things to help them with the academic achievement. So those websites are great. Again, also making sure that we are vigilant in who our children are hanging around, definitely understanding and knowing, setting a tone as to what good friendships look like, what positive relationships look like, because a lot of times those kids mirror what they see at home. Oftentimes they do. I'll say often they do. They mirror what they see at home. So if they see negative relationships at home, they're going to bring the negative vibe, and they're going to have negative relationships at the school level. So definitely making sure that they model what a positive relationship looks like. That is great.
I'm so glad we had this conversation because I think it's so necessary. And again, I think at some point, like moving to prevention, and there's a lot of focus on intervention. I'm game for intervention. I'm both as a counselor. And so like I applaud you as an educator. I'm so excited about your program that you're going to do. And so I know that we got to bring you back on. So when you start it, you can tell us so much that you're discovering so we can get Georgia on board with stuff like that too. And just doing so much more.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because as I mentioned, the program is a leadership development program that's going to help me on with my advocacy efforts and things like that. So I'm very excited about it. And I'm not for sure yet, but I'm definitely entertaining the idea of actually running for my county school board. And so something like this, a program like this, would definitely enhance and really definitely give me the tools and skills that I need to help me do that. And like you said, prevention is definitely the way to go. I mean, like I said, I'm like you, intervention is good, but we definitely want to focus more so on prevention. And so there are some things that we can do out there to help with prevention. I can go on and on talking about the school to prison pipeline and all this kind of stuff, and how, you know, that's a whole other conversation. But there are some things that we can do to prevent what is going on. And like I said, it definitely starts at the home level, but there has to be a partnership in place with the parent as well as the school, and we need to really foster that partnership.
I agree. Well, thank you, George, again for being on. Can you give everybody your information so they can follow you on any social medias, get in touch with you later, follow back up on those programs you mentioned?
Absolutely. I'm on Twitter. That's Twitter GSTEW, the number 2. That's, you can look me up on Twitter that way, GStew2. And I'm also on Instagram. I think it's George Stewart II. And so I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. My email address is THEGS, the number 2 project @gmail.com. That's the GS2 project @gmail.com. And you can reach me there as well. Any questions or any way I can be of help, I'm always happy to help. Working with parents is definitely a passion of mine.
Well, thank you again so much for just joining us, and I definitely will continue to have you a part of more. I love your insight, and I love like just what you're doing in the community. I just have a heart for community, period, and outreach, and I'm with you. This holistic thing has been on my heart a lot lately too. That we're not just mental, we're not just physical. Like there's so many elements to us, and I think like the holistic route and to recognize us as that whole person is going to be the only thing that wins.
Well, I thank you so much for having me on, Jaketra. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. So Source Nation, that was George Stewart, and we just like finished our discussion, just discussing things about parents transitioning. And I hope that you picked up a lot of good pointers. And so I just want to reiterate modeling and communication. So if you don't remember anything that we've said, model and communicate. And so what you model is going to be what your children imitate. And so please keep that in mind. So that old saying, do as I say, not as I do, y'all, that's out the window. And so please model so that your children can actually go in and do well in school this year, relational wise, mental wise, physical wise, and academic. And so please tune back in next week as we continue this series, and we're gonna just keep talking about just transitioning and helping you as parents have these conversations and know how necessary it is. And again, tune back in next week with Family Mix Mondays. I can be reached at jabryant1913@gmail.com. Follow me at Twitter at Jaketra B. If you need to reach back out to me, please do so. And I'll be glad to answer any kind of questions or get you the contact information for any guests I've had. So join me next week with Family Mix Mondays.
Get at me for beats, yo.